9 men, including Memphis rappers Pooh Shiesty and Big 30, are facing federal charges for allegedly kidnapping and robbing rapper Gucci Mane about a raid at a Cordoba home that belongs to Pooh Shiesty's dad.
On April 1st, 2026, at 6 o'clock in the morning, FBI agents arrived at a family home in Cordova, Tennessee. They were not there for the rapper. They had come for his father. And when they knocked on that door and began executing that federal warrant, somewhere inside that house was a mother, a woman named Gladys Baines. And she watched the feds walk out of her home with the father of her son in handcuffs, while her son was being arrested in an entirely different state at the same time. Her son and his father were both gone the same morning, same federal case, and the case they were both taken in for was robbing and kidnapping Gucci Mane, one of the most legendary figures in the history of trap music, at gunpoint inside a Dallas studio while her son was supposed to be on home detention while he was wearing a federal ankle monitor while she had just watched him come home from federal prison 6 months earlier. Pooh's story is not just a crime story. It is a family story, and today we are telling it from that angle. What really happened, who was involved, what his mother did when the world found out, and what this means for everyone left behind. Let's get into it. Pooh Shiesty, born Lantrell Williams Jr., was not just another rapper from Memphis. He was the one who truly broke through, the one who put Memphis drill on the national map in a way that had never been done before. His debut mixtape, Shy Season, dropped in 2021 and reached number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100. Number 12 features from Gucci Mane himself and features from Big 30. His day one, his brother from the city. The streets were behind him, the industry was behind him, and his family was behind him. But here is what really happened. The rise did not last. The legal system caught up. And by 2022, Pooh Shiesty was sitting in federal prison on a gun conspiracy charge out of Miami, facing 5 years.
Rapper Pooh Shiesty is facing prison time after pleading guilty to a gun charge in Miami federal court. The case against Lantrell Williams Jr. stems from 3 shootings during the past 2 years, 2 of them happening right here in South Florida.
He returned home in October 2025. A new car, fan support, and a full celebration that went viral across social media. His mother watched her son step back into freedom and had every reason to think the worst was finally behind them. It was not because 3 months after he returned, he allegedly entered a recording studio in Dallas, Texas with 9 people including his own father and did something that would send shockwaves through hip-hop, through Memphis, and most importantly through his family. And his mother, Gladys Baines, would be left behind to witness everything fall apart in real time. To understand how it unraveled, we have to go back. All the way back. Let's rewind to the beginning. Lantrell Williams Jr. grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis has always carried its own culture. A sound, a code, a way of moving that feels different from anywhere else in the South. The city that gave us 36 Mafia. The city that created its own brand of street music that the rest of the country later caught up to. Pooh Shi emerged from that world, and his mother, Gladys Baines, raised him. She supported him from day one. And when he started building real momentum in music, when the Gucci Mane cosign came through, when 17 Records reached out in 2020, it seemed like everything the family had worked toward was finally paying off. His father, Lantrell Williams Sr., was also around, present, close, and according to federal prosecutors, as we will discuss, far more involved in his son's life than many realized. Then there was Rodney Wright Jr., Big 30, his Memphis brother. They grew up together, recorded together, and appeared on each other's projects. When Shiesty's season dropped and took off, Big 30 was right there. When Pooh Shiesty went to prison, Big 30 kept pushing forward. And when Pooh Shiesty came home, Big 30 was still there. That loyalty, that connection matters because it is exactly what prosecutors claim placed Big 30 among the 9 individuals inside that Dallas studio on January 10, 2026. This is where everything turned federal. In October 2025, Pooh Shiesty walked out of federal prison after serving 3 years of a 5-year sentence. He had pleaded guilty to conspiracy to possess a firearm tied to crimes of violence and drug trafficking. He came home early. He came home to fans celebrating across social media. Came home to a viral moment, but he also came home under strict conditions. Federal home detention with an ankle monitor secured to his leg.
New at 6, Memphis rapper Pooh Shiesty is out of federal prison. Court records show the Memphis native, whose real name is Lantrell Williams Jr., was released from a Pennsylvania facility after serving time for a gun charge in Florida. Williams was sentenced in 2022 to just over 5 years for conspiring to possess firearms tied to drug trafficking and violent crimes. His attorney confirmed the release, saying he's eager to return to the studio and make new music.
Strict conditions. He could not commit another federal offense. He could not possess a firearm. His movement was restricted. The government was watching. Now, according to prosecutors, during those first months home, Pooh Shiesty began having problems with his record deal. He was still signed to Gucci Mane's 2017 records, and he was unhappy about it. Sources close to the situation say that by 2024, Gucci Mane had released most of his artists from the label but kept two. Pooh Shiesty was one of them. That is the part that makes your head spin. Gucci kept him specifically even while he was in prison. And according to prosecutors, that was exactly the issue Pooh Shiesty could not move past. But here is where it gets wild. Instead of hiring a lawyer, instead of going through management, instead of using legitimate routes that exist in the music business for contract disputes, prosecutors say Pooh Shiesty began planning something entirely different. Something that involved 9 people, a road trip from Memphis to Dallas, a stop at a Staples office supply store, and weapons. Fast forward to January 10, 2026. Pooh Shiesty contacted Gucci Mane and arranged a meeting, a studio session on Dallas Parkway. "Come in, let's discuss the contract and figure this out face to face." Gucci Mane agreed. He flew in from Atlanta with 2 other music industry professionals, including his head of security. They arrived in Dallas on a Saturday afternoon believing they were heading into a business conversation. According to federal court documents, investigators later learned that Pooh Shiesty's father, Lantrell Williams Sr., had visited a Staples store hours before that meeting. Prosecutors believe he printed the contract termination paperwork there. The documents that were going to be placed in front of Gucci Mane, the ones he was expected to sign, and the meeting were never about discussion. It had already been decided. On January 10, 2026, at approximately 3:43 in the afternoon, the group entered the studio. 3 victims walked into that building believing they were in a professional environment. What prosecutors say happened inside over the next hour is what the federal government now describes as a coordinated armed takeover. Pooh Shiesty asked to speak with Gucci Mane privately. He pulled him into the recording room. With him in that room, according to the FBI affidavit, were his own father, Lantrell Williams Sr., and Big 30 Rodney Wright Jr. 3-1.
Lantrell Williams Jr. arranged this meeting purportedly to discuss the terms of his recording contract with one of the victims.
Pushy placed the contract termination paperwork on the table in front of Gucci Mane. He told him to sign. Gucci Mane refused, and that is when, according to prosecutors, Pooh Shiesty pulled out an AK-style pistol and pointed it at the man who built 2017 records. The man who gave him his first major cosign, the man who had kept him on the roster while he sat in a federal prison cell, signed the paper. Gucci Mane signed, and then the robbery continued because it did not stop at the contract. After Gucci signed, Pooh Shiesty allegedly removed his wedding ring, his watch, his earrings, his cash, everything. Meanwhile, outside that recording room, the remaining 6 co-conspirators had drawn their weapons on the 2 other victims. One of them, identified in the complaint only as MM, was pushed onto the studio couch and stripped of his wallet and jewelry. The other, identified as BP, was choked from behind to the point of nearly losing consciousness. He was then robbed of a Rolex watch, a Louis Vuitton bag, Apple AirPods, and additional valuables. And Big 30, prosecutors say, stood at the studio door. He blocked it with his body. Nobody was getting out until the job was done. At one point, according to the criminal complaint, the victims believed they were about to be executed. They thought that was the end right there in that studio on Dallas Parkway on a Saturday afternoon. Eventually, they were ordered out. Crew loaded into their vehicles. A 2020 Dodge Charger Hellcat registered to Pooh Shiesty's father and 2 rental cars also rented in his father's name. And they left. They got a hotel room in Dallas that night, and within hours of leaving that studio, multiple co-defendants were posting on social media, flashing the stolen jewelry, flexing the stolen Rolexes, and broadcasting the evidence to their own followers. The investigation that followed was, to put it simply, overwhelming. And the most remarkable thing about it is how much of the evidence came from the defendants themselves.
Within hours of leaving the Dallas studio, a number of the defendants were on social media displaying some of the items that appeared to be the jewelry that had been robbed from the victims.
The ankle monitor on Pooh Shiesty's leg placed him at the studio at the exact time of the robbery in direct violation of his home detention terms. He was supposed to be home. The federal government was already tracking his location in real time and did not yet know what he had done. License plate reader data documented the convoy traveling from Memphis to Dallas in the days before January 10th. Cell phone records confirmed the same timeline. Rental car paperwork tied Lantrell Williams Sr. to the vehicles the group used. Surveillance footage from the studio building, from a neighboring office building, from the Staples store, and from the hotel where the crew stayed afterward captured everything on camera. Then the fingerprints. Investigators recovered latent fingerprints from inside the studio, including from red plastic cups left behind by the crew, and matched them to multiple defendants. And then the AirTag. One of the stolen wallets had an Apple AirTag inside it. The last recorded location of that AirTag was a parking lot directly next to the apartment building where Lantrell Williams Sr. has a lease, the same building where Pooh Shiesty had been staying. The stolen wallet led the feds back to the front door. On April 1, 2026, FBI agents executed search and arrest warrants at the family home in Cordova, Tennessee. Lantrell Williams Sr. was taken into custody in Memphis. Pooh Shiesty, who had been staying at a residential re-entry facility in Dallas, was taken into custody there. 8 of the 9 suspects were arrested across Dallas, Memphis, and Nashville in a single coordinated operation. The 9th, Terrence Rogers, the one who had posted the stolen Rolex on social media, was still being sought at the time of the DOJ announcement. The 32-page criminal complaint was unsealed on April 2nd, and that is when the rest of the world learned what had happened to Gucci Mane in that Dallas studio on January 10th. Now, here is the part that split the internet completely in half. Federal documents show that one of the victims, referred to as R.D. Roderick Davis, Gucci Mane's legal name, cooperated with investigators. He identified his attacker by Instagram handle. He described what the man was wearing. He told federal agents exactly who walked into that studio. 50 Cent went online almost immediately, referencing Gucci's street history and questioning how the same man who built that reputation ended up cooperating in a federal case. Post was deleted, but screenshots lived on. The debate that followed was immediate and divided. Was Gucci wrong for cooperating with law enforcement as a victim of armed robbery and kidnapping? Or does the fact that he built his name on a certain code change the conversation? The internet has been arguing about it ever since. Big 30's lawyer, Arthur Horn, released a statement. He said his client has no prior criminal history, that he and Pooh Shiesty came up in the music industry together, that they were close, and that people should not rush to judgment until all the facts are known. He expressed hope that Big 30 would receive a bond and be able to fight the case from outside custody. Every defendant, all 9, faces a maximum sentence of life in federal prison if convicted. But let's talk about what nobody is really focusing on: Gladys Baines. On the morning of April 1st, she watched FBI agents execute a federal search warrant at her family home. Lantrell Williams Sr., Pooh Shiesty's father, was taken from that house in custody. And her son, her firstborn, the one who had come home just 6 months earlier, the one whose release she celebrated, the one the entire city celebrated, was being arrested in Dallas at the same time. Her son and his father are both gone. Same morning, same federal kidnapping case. She did not say anything directly. She went to Facebook and started posting. On Wednesday, she wrote, and I am reading this exactly, "There is power in the name of Jesus." Just that prayer and faith, nothing about the case, nothing about the charges. Then on Thursday, after the DOJ press conference, after the whole world found out it was Gucci Mane, after the 32-page complaint dropped and the internet went into full meltdown, she posted again, "My ears ringing. #KeepHawk, #blessings on blessings," with a row of prayer hand emojis and then one more. "I've been blocked, you hating folks. #Amen." That is all she gave the public. 3 Facebook posts, no press statement, no interview, no tears on camera, just a mother leaning on her faith while the world talked about her family. And that silence, those 3 posts, those prayer hands, say more than any press release ever could. Think about what Gladys Baines has been through. She raised a son who became one of the biggest rappers in Memphis history. She watched him catch a federal case at the height of his career. She visited him in prison. She watched him walk out in October 2025 and come home to fans celebrating. She had every reason to exhale. And then 4 months later, 4 months, the FBI was at her front door at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they took the father of her child. That is one of the most painful things imaginable. And she handled it with nothing but prayer and silence, and maybe a little defiance toward the people she felt were speaking against her family. YL Woody, who has his own history with the legal system, went on Instagram looking visibly shaken. He talked about watching Pooh Shiesty come home, drop a first day out record, and get sent right back. He said, "Pride and ego are the real enemies." He said the cycle stops when the mindset changes, and the comments under his video were divided. Some agreed, some defended Pooh Shiesty, and some questioned Gucci. Clarissa Shields backed Woody publicly on X. The entire culture reacted in real time, but Gladys Baines simply posted her prayer hands and kept moving. This case changed things for real. For Pooh Shiesty, a man who had every tool needed to rebuild, a fan base that was waiting, and a music industry that still had space for him. That second chance, the kind most people leaving federal prison never receive, now appears to be slipping away. If convicted, he faces life in federal prison. At his current age, that would mean spending the rest of his life behind bars. For Big 30, who by all accounts was not the architect of this situation and, according to his own lawyer, had no prior criminal history, the cost of loyalty to one friendship could end up costing him everything. His entire future now rests in the hands of a federal court in the Northern District of Texas. For Lantrell Williams Sr., the father, the man accused of renting the cars, printing the paperwork, and driving to Dallas with his son, he is now a federal kidnapping defendant.
He went from being a parent who stayed close to his son's world to being charged alongside him in the same criminal complaint.
And for Gucci Mane, who spent years rebuilding a legitimate legacy after his own legal struggles, getting sober, turning 1017 Records into a real institution, earning a Grammy nomination, and publishing a memoir about survival and transformation, he now carries the weight of what happened in that studio on January 10th, along with the weight of what the internet said when he chose to cooperate. The community learned, or should have learned, something from this. Wes L. Woody said it plainly. Mindset is everything. The information people receive inside federal prison about how far the government can go, ankle monitors, license plate readers, AirTags, social media surveillance, none of it was a secret. And yet, 6 months after walking out, the government's own monitoring equipment allegedly placed Pooh Shiesty at the scene of the crime. Today, Pooh Shiesty is in federal custody awaiting trial. His father is in federal custody. Big 30 is in federal custody, fighting for bond. Terrence Rogers is still being sought. And Gladys Baines is somewhere in Memphis posting prayer hands and waiting. And that is the part of this story nobody is going to make a song about. Nobody is going to post about it on social media. But it is the part that is most real. The mother was left behind again. And that gang is what really happened. Not just the robbery, not just the ankle monitor evidence, not just the 50-cent deleted post or the AirTag in the stolen wallet or the fingerprints on the red cups. The real story is a family from Memphis. A mother who raised her son into one of the biggest rappers in the city's history. A father who was so close to his son's world that he allegedly drove the cars and printed the paperwork. A son who came home from federal prison with a second chance that most people in his situation never get. And a Saturday afternoon in Dallas where all of it, the music, the freedom, and the future, allegedly ended. Pooh Shiesty's last Instagram post before his arrest was a video of a new luxury car. He shared it on March 11th. Comment section is now full of people saying the feds are about to seize it. Gladys Baines is still on Facebook posting prayer hands, and the federal case is just beginning. If this story hit different for you today, if you learned something new, or if you saw this from an angle you hadn't seen before, you got to hit that like and subscribe because this is what we do at Informed Sacri Do. We don't just give you the headline. We give you the full picture, the family, the evidence, the culture, all of it. More on this case coming as it develops. Every court date, every co-defendant update, every new detail from those 32 pages. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.